Steve, I feel like we're cracking the seal on you right now. When are we going to start, do you think, getting meaningful insight into how the night's going to unfold?
In 49 minutes, I would say. That's at 7 o'clock. We're going to have a bunch of poll closings in some of the states and districts where the polls close at 7. I think we're going to get a lot of vote quickly and potentially a lot of clarity quickly. Right now, technically, in the eastern time zone portions of Indiana, polls are now closed. Same in Kentucky. No numbers yet. There is a House race, a competitive House race, and potentially a bellwether House race in northwest Indiana in the Gary area. That's in the central time zone, so actually it's not going to be till 7 o'clock that we start getting numbers there. But there is a congressional district in Indiana starting at 7 o'clock Eastern time we're going to be looking at. But let me give you a sense here of where we'll be looking in the early hour or two of election night here, where I think most of the action is going to be, again, starting at about 7 o'clock Eastern time. So start in Florida here, and I think Florida is the most efficient sort of big state, maybe the most efficient state, period, when it comes to counting up its votes. Everything except the Panhandle. So that is basically 90% of all the vote in Florida is going to start getting reported at 7 o'clock. And essentially the rule in the state is every county within 30 minutes is supposed to report out all of its early and all of its mail vote. And what that will be is about 2/3 of the vote, give or take, in every county. So in that 7 to 8 o'clock hour, you're going to get the majority of the vote in Florida. And then as soon as that's reported out by the counties, they then begin reporting out their same day. Typically, you're talking about an imbalance here in how members of different parties vote in Florida. There's a bit of a difference. It's not been hugely pronounced in the past, but the Democrats tend to do a little bit better with that early mail vote that you'll see first. The Republicans do better with the same day, but it's not, we don't see huge splits, but typically expect the first number you see in these counties in Florida to be the high watermark for Democrats and to come down from there. One of the places we're going to be paying very close attention to in Florida is Miami-Dade County, obviously one of the biggest counties in the country here. I'll just show you right now. This was the shift that we saw in 2020 in Miami-Dade. Look at this. In 2016, Hillary Clinton won Miami-Dade by almost 30 points. In 2020, Trump brought that down to a single-digit loss for Republicans. Again, this is 2.75 million people. This is 70% Hispanic. This has a lot to do with that national storyline that we've been following the last couple years about our Hispanic voters moving a bit away from the Democrats toward Republicans. Want to see what Miami-Dade looks like tonight? Republicans have been talking optimistically about outright winning Miami-Dade County in the Senate and governor's race tonight. There's also a competitive House race there tonight, so we'll be keeping an eye on that at 7 o'clock. Also at 7 o'clock, critically closing in Georgia, and that's where we've got, obviously, there's the governor's race, and then there's the Senate race everybody's talking about here. Now, in Georgia, one thing to keep in mind, again, related to that conversation you're having about the order that votes are released. Under the new voting law in Georgia, it's explicitly in the law right now, they encourage the counties to begin tabulating, and this is the key word here, tabulating instead of processing the early and the mail vote on Election Day. And the Secretary of State's office in Georgia has been working to encourage the counties to do this, meaning they get this flood of votes that are cast either early or by mail. And in the past, a lot of counties have waited until, the end of the night to count it up. And it's been, we saw in 2020 how that could result in some long delays. There's the possibility here that it's going to be a lot like Florida in Georgia tonight, where you get the mail and you get the early vote, especially in the big counties early. We'll see if that happens, but that possibility exists. And if that's the case, you could see, especially in this Atlanta area, that's the core Democratic area of the state, you could see the Democrats jump out to a quick early lead here in the statewide vote. And then it could be same-day vote coming after that. The Republicans catch them. So that's one thing to keep an eye on there. Another place we're going to be looking at 7 o'clock that I think is going to be key is New Hampshire. The official poll closing time in New Hampshire is 8. It is done by city and town. These are not counties. New Hampshire doesn't have this many counties, but this jigsaw puzzle here you see is every city and town in New Hampshire, and they each set their own poll closing time. Most of them have chosen 7 p.m. Eastern, and what I think is going to be so significant here is with this many cities and towns, we're going to get some complete results, I think. It'd be scattering, but a lot of places will be able to report out their complete results, and once we have complete results from a city or town, we can compare it to the last election. And so the interesting thing here in this New Hampshire Senate race, which has emerged as an unexpectedly close race here, is, look, it's a state that Donald Trump lost by 7 points in 2020. So Bolduc, the Republican, basically he wants to be running in any given city or town 5 points better than Trump. So we're going to begin to see, as these cities and towns report, maybe in that 7 o'clock hour, is he doing that? Is he falling short of that? It could tell us how New Hampshire's going. That could offer us a clue, too, about perhaps what's happening nationally. So those are some of the big things we're going to follow at 7 o'clock. At 7:30, we're going to add in votes. North Carolina, the polls will close there. Again, early and mail will probably come first in North Carolina. Also at 7:30, the polls are going to close in Ohio, that Senate race between J.D. Vance and Tim Ryan. Again, I would expect the Democrats, the early and the mail, to be predominantly the vote that's reported out first. So again, I would expect that to be the high watermark for Ryan. And then the question of the night to be, as the same day is counted, is Vance able to overtake him in Ohio? And of course, all sorts of House seats here. There's in Virginia, New Hampshire, in Ohio, North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, all sorts of House seats where we could be getting results in that 7:30, 8 o'clock window that I think could tell us a lot about that Republican quest to flip 5 seats, win control of the House.
Steve, I have one thing to confirm with you, one thing to ask you, and one thing to prompt you to talk about. The thing that I want to confirm is that you're saying that while we have been talking about the so-called red mirage and how in a lot of places the first vote that gets counted will tilt toward Republicans, and Democrats have been trying to prepare people for that, you're reminding us that actually in Florida and Georgia specifically, not only will we get votes soon, but that's likely to be high water marks for Democrats. It's likely to be the most Democratic-leaning vote totals that we're going to get in one big dump.
Definitely in Florida. In Georgia, that is the theory.
Okay.
This is the first time they're running the election with this encouragement to the counties to do this. So we're going to see if they do that. In Ohio, yes, that was the case in 2020. You saw Joe Biden actually have a lead in Ohio until about more than 50% of the vote was counted, and the same day came last. Where you'll see this idea of the red mirage, as it's been called, where the Republicans get out to the big lead and then the Democrats, try to play catch up. I think the states where that's more likely to happen are Pennsylvania, Michigan, and potentially Wisconsin.
Okay.
Wisconsin, because the biggest city in the state, Milwaukee, takes the absentee vote, the vote by mail, and they bring it to a central processing facility, and they count it at the very end of the night. And so we've seen twice now in Wisconsin, in 2018 and in 2020, the election was decided, there's razor-thin margins, it always is in Wisconsin, in both times. The governor's race in 2018 when Scott Walker lost, in 2020 when Donald Trump lost the state by 20,000 votes, you literally saw the state shift from red to blue with that Milwaukee absentee that was counted very, very late at night. So that's typically how it goes in Wisconsin. So there are states where I think that pattern will obtain this year. One of the key differences, like I say, is states that have early voting, in-person early voting, like a North Carolina, like a Florida, Republicans seem okay with doing that. You don't see a huge partisan divide with in-person early. Where you see the huge partisan divide is mail.
Right.
That's just overwhelmingly Democratic. And Pennsylvania offers no in-person early voting. So you're either voting by mail or you're voting same day. And so that's where you really get those dramatic splits in a state like Pennsylvania. And so it really depends. And you can see the numbers move all around. But I think Pennsylvania has the potential, again, to be one of those states where the same day gets tallied faster, perhaps, than the mail. Although, again, they are saying this is going to be a little bit different this year in terms of incentivizing the counties to do the mail faster, but we shall see.